Hello, everyone. I'm Jenna Herbert, and I'm the founder of Make It. And you are in for a treat for this episode of Meet the Makies, because we have first-time Makey, Karen Dance from Tilted Kiln. Thanks for joining me, Karen. Yeah, and you're right in the studio, so this is where the magic happens.
Yes, it does. Definitely does.
And your pieces are so cool. I don't know, do you have anything you could just show us just to hold up to give people somewhat of an idea of your
Sure.
style?
I'll off my wall here. Sorry for sketching out, but I'll just grab. This is one of the pieces I was working on just recently. Just a new idea coming from me.
Oh my God! Wow.
I was hopeful to make it like a little birdhouse. I think I need to make it a little bigger. So yeah.
Those horns. So that's a birdhouse.
I'm hoping that it'll be a birdhouse.
Wow. So Karen, I would love to hear how you got started.
I did pottery a long time ago in my 20s, and I was living in Ontario at the time, and I wasn't married. I just took a class, and I thought, oh, I really like this. And I was a little bored at just making round things. So I started hand building a little more organic shapes and doing big vases and interesting shapes. And that took me a while. I enjoyed that. I pursued it just sort of part-time. But then I got married and I had 3 kids pretty quick together. So I tried to keep it up. It was just too hard. My kids were pretty demanding and I was a stay-at-home mom. So I let that go for a while. And then flash to about, I don't know, I worked at his career as a gymnastics coach and I just needed a change. So I went to school for movie makeup and creature design and that sort of thing in Toronto at a school called Complexions. And I really enjoyed the creature design aspect. And when I graduated, I did a little bit of makeup work, but I didn't quite like it. And so I went back to clay. And I decided just to do hand building sort of creatures and sculpting and that sort of thing. And then that morphed into more functional, practical things because not everybody wants to buy a sculpture of a creature's head, right? It's just a marketable thing.
Fair enough.
So I tried to figure out how to do it so that I could earn an income. And then I wanted to move out of Ontario. So I sold my house and left what I had there and I came to Vancouver Island and I bought I knew these guys were going to cut my lawn today, so they're going to be going by in a minute.
All good.
So I moved to Vancouver Island. I bought a townhouse that I could put a studio in the whole basement. Wow. And just started creating and developed my product line. I tested it at a few little stores and I really had to try to keep it my style and to not be influenced by too many other things, you know, because out west, everybody's a real West Coaster and they have, you know, orcas and sea life and that sort of thing. So I really wanted to stay in my niche and developed my product and just worked really hard at getting it to be at a professional level that I was comfortable, you know, offering it to the public. And that's where I am. So I've been doing it for about, I think, really working hard at it, 3 years. And I'm pretty happy where I'm at.
That's an amazing story to have like a gymnastics coach like that. In a way, you couldn't be more different. And so was that a scary transition to give that up and not only, you know, try something new, but also to move across the country? Like, how did that feel?
I wasn't really afraid of the move. I've always been fairly adventurous and independent. I was not sure that I could make it work. I'm still not sure that I can make it work. As an artist, we all face those demons every day. I was really excited about it. I was ready for that change. I'm in my 50s, and I said to myself, if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. I had to take the opportunity when it presented itself to me, and I really worked hard at staying on that path,
Mhm.
because I can go all sorts of directions, and I struggle with staying in one straight and narrow path.
So have you always had this creativity inside of you? Was it with you even when you were like a little kid? And
Child, I was fairly creative. I wasn't a real artist back then. I didn't think I had any gift, and I don't really think that I knew that my hands could create these types of things until maybe 5, 6 years ago, when I was really, I'm not trained as a sculptor, so I don't necessarily sculpt, but I am finding out what I can create just by trial and error. And I put something side by side from what I made before to what I'm making now, and I mean it's quite the growth in a short amount of time, so I'm pretty proud of that.
you're improving, and that's all you can really do. It's one
Yeah.
step in front of the other. So because your designs are just so, they're so fantastical, like they just come almost from like another world. So what like inspires you?
I would just say people. I love people watching, very observant. I think that my observation skills come from being a supervisor and a gymnastics coach, having to watch movement and watch nuances of people. And so I really get a kick out of going to the airport, because there's
Oh yeah.
wacky people at the airport. And if I could take photographs of people, I would. I mean, it can't do
Might be
that.
a little creepy.
But I do see some really interesting um, characteristics in people that maybe they don't know are there. And I think I keep that in my memory bank, and then I draw on that when I'm making a piece. I like humor. Things have to be funny to me. I mean, some of my stuff might be a little gruesome or angry looking, but they're still funny. And I really like the reaction that I get from people when they look at my work. So it's not always about, I set myself up and I'd like to sell pieces, but I also really enjoy when people are interacting with me and interacting with the pieces. And even if they just look at it for 5 minutes and then walk away, it still brings me joy.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, inspiration is mostly from people.
Oh, that's so interesting. And it's one thing to create product and to make things, but how were you able to actually start selling? Was it at first to friends and family, or how did it grow?
When I was first in Oakville, I was working out of my basement, just making little lidded jars, and I put them on Facebook, and then I would go to some, like the Arts on the Avenue or Arts in the Park, little markets. And that was my very first showing, was I think it was called Art in the Park. And it was like just, exposing myself completely to see if anybody actually liked it. And I had a really great reaction. And so I thought, okay, then I'm going to continue this, just because I was testing the market to see if that was the case. And then when I moved here, I went to a small shop in Chemainus called Bound to Be Different, and she was so thrilled to have me come in and show her my pieces. I was like, all right, I've got my foot in the door. And then I was just slowly building up that way. I think word of mouth, and then doing, the outdoor market type things. I don't do a ton of them, but I do a select few.
And was that scary, that first experience when you were set up in the park? Like, did you have some nerves around, well, people like these?
I was just being exposing myself and really seeing, is my work good enough to price it at where my price point was? Were people going to look at me like, why would I buy something like that? I was a little intimidated, because the show that I was in was an art show. It wasn't a craft show. And so I was amongst other juror artisans. Just the fact that I got in was quite nice. And then, I think my confidence was built up from that particular show. So yeah, I was a little nervous about how I was going to be received, but I wasn't scared. I wasn't afraid to launch. Because if it doesn't work, you try something else, right?
Yeah, it's that attitude, it's that mindset of, you know what, if it doesn't work, you just try something new. And I think when you are a creative person, it's an endless resource. That pool of creative ideas it runs pretty deep. And it's one thing to make stuff and to sell it, and then it's like, how do you grow it? So did you have any experience like running a business before where you
I'm
did all
a
this?
teacher, so I think it's just boots on the ground and really trying to connect with as many people as you can, word of mouth and um, networking. And because I'm new to the island, I was a little bit not sure, okay, how am I going to do all this networking if I don't know anybody? Like, I really don't know anybody out here.
Wow.
And so I took an Instagram course trying to learn how to use Instagram properly to market myself. I still don't do it as well as I should. And I did the old school basics of getting good business cards, and I haven't done any advertising per se because it's a budgetary thing. I don't have the budget to do those kinds of things, but there's still some learning curves for me, definitely.
And I think there always is. That's part of the journey. It's like you get to one level and then there's all these other things that come up. So right now, are you still selling in stores and various shows?
I just launched my website, got that figured out. I had some technical help with my daughters. Um,
Nice.
One shop in Chemainus and I have another shop in Souk. They both still have some stock. And so hopefully when things open up more fully, they'll be able to, get more product from me. But as it stands, those are the only two stores I have at the moment. And I decided to do just one or two really big shows this year. That was my goal, was to try to push myself to do something that was, out of my comfort zone, or, safety net of a small show, and to do your show.
Yay. And what inspired you to decide to apply to make it?
I really like the vibe of all the people and the comments that you get in your, like, I follow you and I scroll through to see what people are saying. And I really enjoyed the commentary and the positive feedback that you got from your shows. And I've contacted some of the other sellers and asked how they enjoyed the show and how much stock did you sell and was it worth it? And they said to me, one particular company, they said that they had so much positive feedback and so many clients have been looking for them at the show that they tripled their sales going to the show. So then, okay, well, that's a golden comment.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I know you're going to fit right in. It totally, so just from chatting with you, I think, it's totally your vibe. So I'm so interested, Karen, and really just, yeah, really just inspired by, you're in your 50s and you just took this leap of faith. Because I think right now with COVID, there's a lot of people who've been laid off their job, or maybe they're even just rethinking everything, because taking a step back and having that opportunity to reflect, like what advice would you give to someone who's maybe at that crux point? Because I can't imagine, it's an easy decision when you have that security and you have all that stuff built up to try something. So how, yeah, what words of wisdom could you share with someone who's in that position?
I let's see, my mother always said to me that just try it and see what happens. That was always her advice. Well, just try it. I have a tremendous amount of security with my family. They're very good supporters of my work and anything that I need. They've always been there for me. My kids, my extended families, and all my friends, they're tremendous support. So if you have a safety net like that, then you're fine. If you have a little bit of money, that makes it even better. But at this time when things are really rocky, I would say just go small. And that was what I did. I thought, okay, I'm not going to jump into this and be gigantic. I don't need to take over the island with my work. It's just a small oozing of my work, right? And then I can manage that. So I didn't bite off more than I could chew. Don't be afraid. It's the worst that can happen is you fail, and then you learn a whole bunch.
Mm. I couldn't agree more. I think that whole concept of failure is it's such a, it doesn't really even exist because like you said, you learn so much. And I get asked all the time, like, what's your biggest failure? And I think sometimes they want this epic answer of like, oh, this happened and all. But in hindsight, it always works out for the best, even though at the time, it might not be exactly the way you want it to be. And there's some disappointment that you have to deal with. And I actually feel like this point in time is allowing us to really grow and to strengthen as entrepreneurs. And when I'm just so curious because your product is so unique and different. Like, are you ever just surprised what comes out of you? Do you ever look at one of these creatures like, what the heck?
Yeah, like this, that thing that I showed to you before.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, well, that's kind of cool. Yeah, all the time. The mug that I have beside me was a really early piece, and I was just
hold it up.
Just experimenting with how ugly can I make something. I mean, he's got a milky eye, and it's really wonky. I didn't sell it because it's just so wonky. It doesn't even sit straight, but I love it. Yeah, all the time I'm surprised by it. There are things that I make that are like rote. I do the same thing. I place things where they're supposed to go, just that way I can make lots of product. But lots of times.
And the people who are buying from you, your customers, like what do they say about your work?
Sometimes they say it's grotesque, but I love it. It brings them joy. I make little cups. I don't know. These aren't the particular ones, but I make these little sippy cups.
Oh, so funny.
Oh, here's one. I call them mini sippers, and they just bring you joy. It's small, and everyone is different. They don't all have the same expression, but if it's, that saying, spark joy, sparks joy, then that's, my job is done.
It's so true. And then your product sells itself because it resonates with people. So I know a lot of artists and makers have a huge challenge with selling their work. Like they love to make and they love to get cozy up in their studio, but actually standing there and selling can be quite a vulnerable position to put yourself in. So how are you able to, I guess, move past some of those feelings?
I stay back when people first come to my booth, and I observe because that's what I like to do. And what I find is people will see something in a piece that reminds them of somebody that they either love or themselves. And I wait for that reaction. And then sometimes I'll move out and I'll introduce them to come in and enjoy more. And then if they just want to walk by, I'll say, thank you so much for smiling at my work. But if someone's really struggling between two pieces, or they're a little bit daunted by the price, then I can explain that it's kind of a luxury item. It's something that you'll covet. It's not a cup that's mass produced. It's a piece of art. And that way they can understand that what their purchase is, it's more of something that they will keep and hold on to. And so sometimes it justifies it a little bit more. But I like to give people space to get to know my work, because sometimes they'll walk through and they'll look at my work, but then they'll come back because something caught their eye and they want to look at it, they want to feel it. Everything I make is very tactile. So it's, sometimes the surface is very rough on the outside, but very silky smooth on the inside. So I think for the most part, that's what I do.
I like that. Yeah. Allowing them just to have that time to really take it in, because there could be a lot of pressure if it's a small space and someone's looking and they just want to feel it out. So I think that's good advice, and just to have faith that the right people are going to come back, and if they don't, that's cool too. Not to have that anxiety of like, oh, I have to sell to everyone who crossed my path.
No, but they will come back if they've seen something. And I've had that happen in shops. People come in and they've been introduced to my work. They've never seen it before. And they'll say, oh my God, that's so cute. Or I have a story. Can I tell a story?
Yes, please.
Okay, so I made this one little piece. probably about this big. It was a bank, a money bank. And it looked like a little lemon. And it had spikes and crazy eyes and things like that. It wasn't particularly big. And it was on the shelf in this one shop. And a young lady came in and she saw it. As soon as she came in, she saw it. And she was like, what is that? And the shop owner, Amy, she said, oh, that's by my friend Karen. And it's a money bank. And she said, it's a lemon. And she said, my dad called me Lemon. And her father had recently passed. So she had to buy it because there was that connection immediately with something. And I didn't know that I was making a lemon. I just made a yellow bank. And
wow.
those types of things, they really make me feel good. They make me feel good about my work.
And I'm sure that just the motivation to keep going.
Yeah. So
yeah,
I think that's what sells my work. So sometimes I don't even have to do it.
I love that personal connection. And Karen, because this business, it sounds like you're doing well and you're happy and you're exploring different things. Do you ever think of like how you're going to scale it and grow it, or is that even something that you care to do? Like what's sort of the capacity? Because with a jeweler, they can hire a few people to help, or if you're silk screening t-shirts, you can outsource some of those parts. But for what you're doing, it's so deeply personal. Like could you even potentially hire someone to help you create?
There are certain pieces that I can make that are more of a production line, and I've worked really hard at figuring out how to cut some of the corners down and how to not work quite so detailed but still get the quality that I want. So I've amped up my production because I was never trained as a production potter. I was just hack potter. So I've amped up my production mode, and I've made my own molds, and I've really gotten quite serious about running my studio more as a professional studio rather than just an art hobby. So I'm not really sure that I could hire anybody at the moment, but there are things that I could have somebody come in and do for me, and I could have them mix my glazes, or I could have them do some of the glazing. But my pieces are very painterly, so I will take the time to paint each eyeball and the horns and things like that. But there are steps that I could, slough off to somebody else.
And do you have the desire to scale?
To a certain degree. I don't want to be a mass-produced product line. That's not something that really resonates with me. I'm sure my bank account would like that, but there's just certain aspects of my work that I'd like to keep as personal as possible.
Fair enough. And with making decisions, like how, because I know there's so much outside noise, like, oh, you should do this and you should do that, especially when you go on Instagram. It's sort of overwhelming how many things, and it's easy to compare ourselves with someone who's been doing it for a long time, like I should be there. So how do you personally, Karen, like how do you make decisions?
I try not to be too emotional about them. This is hard because I'm an artist and we are emotional. I also limit my time on social media. I will pull back once in a while because I feel overwhelmed, and I feel that pressure of trying to be like those people. And then I look and I think, no, I said to myself, I'm going to have a slow organic growth to my business to where I can still manage to make what I want to make. I'm going to learn to be better, but those decisions, sometimes I'll ask for advice from other people, and I'll take small courses and that sort of thing. And then I'll take pieces of the information that I'm getting that apply to me, because I can't use everything that everybody's going to give me. So I'll just take those small pieces and I'll put them down in my chart and put them on my calendar and say, okay, so they said to set a goal of this much. Well, I can't do that personally, so I'll customize it. So that's what I do. And then I think about it.
Don't we all? So now that you've been on the island for a little while, have you cultivated somewhat of a community around you?
Yes. And it's awesome. so if I take pieces to these shops that I have, and people will see that I posted it on Instagram, or they will see from the shop owners that there's new pieces in, they don't last long, and that's really encouraging. You know, my pieces are they're going out the door. So, and I have lots of followers, which is nice. And I'm not in the thousands yet. I've only got like 800 followers or something, but that's okay for me. I only started Instagram, a couple of years ago, and I don't do all the things I'm supposed to do.
But who does, really? I mean, it's endless what you can do, and you just don't know.
Platforms. There's just too much coming at me.
There's so much. So Karen, just from chatting, like, you have such a positive mindset. Like, how do you have any practices or rituals to just keep yourself in that mind frame? Because especially now, there's so much uncertainty and, you know, a lot of negativity in the world. So how are you able to redirect your focus when the outside noise gets to be loud?
I do have my own pity party once in a while. I'm not gonna lie. There are times when things are very dark for me, and I'm why am I here? Why am I doing this? I'm never gonna be able to do this. And then I think to myself, well, what's the alternative? I'm not an office person, so I can't get a job in an office. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. It took me a long time to figure that out. I'm a slow learner. You know, it took me till I was in my 50s. But I have a fairly good outlook on life, and I do some yoga here and there, and I do, you know, I go out in the woods and I walk my dog, and you have to be happy. You can be sad when you need to be sad, and you can be, you know, down about the pressures of trying to keep a business going, and that you can't do it all yourself. But what's the alternative? Be sad all the time? No. Take that moment, use it for something, use your anger or your sadness to grow, and then be happy and be positive and be proud of yourself. My God, be proud of yourself. I think that's the most important part.
And for you, you can use that pent up, like, anger, like negative energy, and just create like a crazy gargoyle.
When I'm angry, I make angry mugs. And when I'm sad, I make forlorn things. So yeah.
All about channeling. So what advice would you give, like, Karen of I guess 3 years ago is when you first got started on this? Like, what are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned in your experience so far?
Trying not to waste time on things that don't matter, because I did a lot of that. I would, and I still do that. I would try to be as organized in your desires. So if you say to yourself, okay, here's my timeline, I have 3 years to accomplish that. And if that doesn't happen, use what you've learned in that 3 years and put that towards something else. So if your goal doesn't happen in that 3 years, take what you learned in those 3 years and say, okay, well, I didn't quite make it all the way, but I've made it halfway. So be proud of yourself, set realistic goals. That was important for me, was to not be grandiose, and use your support systems, because people are really quite happy to help you. People want to help you. So those are my go-tos. Be realistic, be proud, and use your support system. Such great
advice. Simple, but so profound at the same time. So Karen, how can people find you if they want to buy a mug? Can they go to your website and pick something up right now?
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out the shipping problems, but you can always message me. So it's www.tiltedkilnworks.com. So it's tiltedkilnworks.com, and I'm on Instagram and Facebook.
All Tilted Kiln?
All the same. My email, my Facebook. Yeah.
That's how you want it. That's the way to go.
In the studio if they want to come and see me in Ladysmith.
Well, there you go. And now that things are starting to open up, that sounds awesome. So, well, thank you so much, Karen. I know I learned a lot from you, and you have such a great story and just such a Yeah, I just love your attitude, and I have no doubt you're going to fit in wonderfully at Make It. And, you know, fingers crossed, we'll have a holiday show and people can come check out your booth.
Yeah, I hope so. I'm really looking forward to being there with everybody.
Awesome.
I
Awesome.
don't know if I have enough stuff for your show.
Well, you got to get busy. You got about 6 months. So awesome. And thank you to everyone watching for joining in for this episode of Meet the Makies. And if you enjoyed this episode with Karen, make sure that you subscribe and join us for more stories of the people behind the booth. We'll see you again soon.
Thank you.